Ya'ate, mabuhay, aloha, and hola. Familia, worldwide tribe, medicine tribe, television here, live today. Very nice to see you as well. It's Thursday, the 14th, and today's epically special guest is the one and only legendary Danica Patrick. And I'm not even going to give that much of an intro because she's a force to be reckoned with and a very special friend and a special woman in the world. So stoked to get to chat with her today, check in with her, and hear her Danica-isms, of course. So let's get her on here without further ado and get to chatting today. There she is.
Oh, I'm so blown out, the light.
I know, I kind of like it though, because I feel like it just allows us to like be our shiny selves, you know?
Oh, you want me to shine? Okay.
Yeah, shine, girl. Let's go.
It's a bit bright, though.
I'm like right in the window too, yeah.
Let's step back.
Okay, reimagine it. Here we go. You're the professional at this, by the way. I'm not the professional at this. You know how to do it.
Oh, no. Yeah, actually, I did buy some...
Did you get some lights?
Professional lights. I bought the ring lights. And the one on the table, like the small one.
Oh, is he a moon one? Is that the moon one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It works okay, but the big one, like the stand-up one, that's legit. I've never used it on camera yet, but I have maybe backlight. Oh, look at backlight.
Now look at this janky-ass light I have that I made. This is literally like a random pole that's for like speakers.
Uh-huh.
And then this super ghetto.
That's so
you know what I'm
funny.
saying? With this thing, right? Doesn't even belong here, but this is how it goes. This is how I do my Sunday service shit. Woo! DIY, baby.
Whatever it takes to jam like you do. We all love it.
I shave my legs.
And you shave your legs?
Oh, yeah, well, I'm trying to go faster, you know. Do you ever think that works?
I mean, I don't. I had an engineer way back in the days when I had a job and of racing, and he called it the 100-hand theory. He said, if you stick one hand out the window, it doesn't really make a difference. But if you stick 100 hands out the window, it's going to slow you down. So if you want to move faster, you know, is it going to really make that big of a difference? No, but if you do 100 of those little things, for sure.
Well, I'm glad we could open up a conversation with such a deep ism, you know, I guess all hands on deck in that sense. And it's just great to be I lost it. I was trying to find another one. It's just nice to see you today. Nice to chat with you. Thanks for hanging out for a minute and touching base. How are you? What's going on in your world? How you feeling? How's your heart?
Good. It's good. You know, I love connecting in the morning when I do my Instagram live workouts 3 days a week. That really helps. I came to Arizona to visit my girlfriends and everything's like open here.
You got the wind in your hair and like,
yeah.
So what, they reopened over there, huh?
Yeah. Restaurants, all kinds of stuff. So, and it's kind of all happening this weekend. So
all at once.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah.
That's so wild.
I mean, can you imagine going out to a restaurant again?
I don't know. It'd be really weird. I'd be like, that's the thing is like, what's the vibe over there? Like, is there like a general sense of PTSD or are people just sort of like jumping right back in?
I don't know. I don't see as many masks. California has a lot of masks and a lot of paranoia. It doesn't seem so bad.
Yeah. Well, I guess it's a good reprieve then, and your family's well, and your friends there are okay. Everybody's all right.
Yeah, everybody's great. I mean, I think that I think the idea of like 3 more months of this in California is a little bit overwhelming.
Did you go to a restaurant?
Not in California, and I haven't gone to a restaurant yet, but in
I'm
Arizona,
so curious.
night on.
Damn, what's the first kind of food you're gonna eat?
I always eat healthy. I'm like I don't crave certain things. So I'm sure I'll have salmon and a salad and
Have some salmon and a salad.
maybe some like charred cauliflower with some like tahini sauce.
Uh. I mean, that sounds delicious.
Yeah, it is. It is. That's the good, like healthy food gets a bad rap.
Do you think so?
Yeah, I think people think it's boring.
I mean, it can be boring. You just got to learn how to like make it interesting, right?
Yeah.
Or do you like to cook? Are you a crazy cooker?
I love to cook. Yeah. Let me get comfortable. Let me put my feet up. Hold on.
Okay. I think I'm now
Oh,
now I'm
yeah.
like wondering if the blowout is like is a bad thing. I'm like, oh, I'm so
No, you're
okay.
great. You're great.
All right, cool. I had my I had my other face I was gonna wear today, but I figured you hadn't seen this face yet, so I didn't want to freak you out. So now you see
I
it, so
love
you're more
that.
familiar with it. Yeah.
And when Nahko asked, for a photo to promote today's show, I sent him two options. I sent the one you used, and then I sent a picture of aliens sitting on a rock looking at the Earth saying something funny.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you about that because I don't know if a lot of people know, because I know, during you've got this great podcast, and you had me on there, and I appreciate that. It was a fun talk. And at the end of our chat, we were like sort of tapping into getting to know each other a bit more, and I mentioned something about aliens, and you were like, "What? Oh shit, aliens!" And I was like, "Oh, whoa, okay." And I don't know if many people know how mystical and like into the stars and things you are. I mean, can you tell us a little bit about where that began for you?
Well, you played Alice for me, which is
That's right.
Probably my favorite song of yours, and you were explaining where it came from, and part of it had to do with the giant people.
Right.
And you were explaining how someone in Hawaii had told you about these giant people, and I was like, oh yeah, I've totally heard about that. And then we kind of got into like, more esoteric thoughts about aliens and whatnot. And we're like, wait a second, you said you were super into it. And I was like, how did we go this entire conversation talking about the most interesting thing? I have always just believed in something else. And I remember when I was I feel like it was grade school, I did a report. We had to choose something to do a report on, and I chose to do a report on aliens. I chose to do it on sightings of the first, second, and third kind, and I had
How old were you?
Cards. I feel like I had to have been in like 7th or 8th grade.
So what, were your parents like really into that kind of stuff? I mean, how did you even you must have been soaking that information up from somewhere, right?
No, I don't think so. I mean, the only thing that I ever heard was my dad would say when it came to the pyramids in Egypt or something, and he'd say, aliens built it. And I remember hearing that all the time when I was a kid, like, oh, aliens. And so maybe that's the seed that got planted. But I also think that we come into this world with just a little bit of knowing, don't you?
Absolutely. But then I feel like something triggers it, right? Like, I mean, the way I was raised was, totally, there was never any talk about those kinds of things. In fact, my family was so conservative in the sense that I couldn't even watch I remember wanting to watch Casper, the Friendly Ghost, the cartoon. Yeah. And that was off limits. Like I couldn't even watch that. So like spirit world stuff, wasn't, outside of the like biblical spirit world stuff, like outside of the stories, but it wasn't brought into that realm. So it wasn't until I was like much older that I started to like drop into thinking about that kind of stuff.
What was the first thing? Do you remember? Can you track back and be like, this happened?
Yeah, I mean, I can remember the first time that I used psychedelic medicine. And I remember sitting on a trail in Alaska, and I was out on this big hike. And I remember sitting there, and I was staring at the trees, as you do. And I was sitting there, and I was like, I remember starting to cry because I thought, I think where I had to begin was deconstructing my idea of what God was to me. Because I was so thick in the story about, this person, this man that had created, this whole religion and this whole way of life. And I remember having to deconstruct what God was. And I remember crying because I was like, what if there's no God? And then I thought,
what if I go to hell? And I remember crying because I was like, I was deep in it still, you know, I was like trying to break away from it all. And I think it was in that specific moment where I was like, I don't think this is real. I don't think any of this is real. I remember thinking, there's something far more deep than the story I've been told. And so I think that medicine really, you know, shifted my started to deconstruct a lot of that colonizing, you know, that Western thinking, and allowed me to start to think for myself, essentially, which opened the door.
I feel like, you know, maybe it's like opening neural pathways, like all of them, instead of just the ones that you've been thinking. It's almost maybe like neuroplasticity, where you can
Yeah.
rethink, or maybe it's like a refiring of thoughts that open up all the channels instead of just the ones that you've been programmed with, maybe.
Yeah, and if you know, kids are allowed, you know, depending on who your parents are, where you're from, your entire situation, you know, where you know, some of us are given pieces and gateways into beginning to have that kind of train of thought at a very early age, and then a lot of us are having to like work backwards for like, you know, so many years just to get back to like a state where we can just have, you know, take away that narrow-mindedness and just allow ourselves to have an open-mindedness. And it's very difficult in this world.
Remembering to remember. One
End
of the
quote.
hard things.
Is that a hashtag Danicaism?
Oh no, I mean, you can give
Oh,
it to me, but I think it'll be reclaimed by someone that probably actually said it for the first time. But I think it's a truth. I think it's a really true thought. Let's not call it like my quote, unless you want to. But I think it's a really true thing. I think there's all kinds of things that we have to remember, including to be a kid and to have fun and be carefree and, you know, follow the flow and not be so, you know, regimented. And I'm speaking to myself, to be honest, because I
mm-hmm.
can be that way. So, you know, I think we have to remember to be more like that innocent, real, true, raw, heart open kid.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel like, because I feel like it's such an interesting thing to drive fast all the time in that sense. And I go like, I wonder if when you were driving really fast sometimes, did you ever think like you were breaking through something?
Mm.
That's just where my mind goes. I was like, yo, if I was driving really fast, and I was loving it, and I was like, I love going fast, and I'm really like good, and I was like, oh, I bet I would like break through like some kind of barrier in that and I wondered if you like experiencing that stuff during your years of racing.
I think maybe know that you enter a different um, dimension or mind space, or let's call it a dimension.
Okay.
Like I'll use this as an example. So I was at Martinsville. This is, you know, obviously back when I had a job, and I was sick and I didn't feel good. And I was really congested. So I got up and I took Dayquil in the morning, and I took it before I ate.
Oh shit.
And then I ate, and I was like, before I went into the garage, which was like only, you know, an hour after I took it, I was like, I feel drunk.
Mm.
I feel like, how the hell am I going to drive around this tiny little, like, half-mile flat track feeling drunk? But of course, I didn't say a word.
Yeah.
So I go get in the car and I go out and I don't notice anything.
Oh shit.
Nothing. I was like top 10 in that practice. Like everything was good. And I remember thinking to myself, how is that possible? And that's, I think, just a different dimension, a different space, your brain shifts to a different space. So do I think I like break through something? I just think that your mind transcends, not
Yeah.
at that speed, but with that focus.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe you experience
That makes
something like
sense.
that on stage.
Yeah, well, when you're saying that, I was thinking actually about riding horses. There's like you know, there's this, well, and then of course the addition of like the relationship between you and the horse, or like you and a car, or whatever it is that you're like, you have a relationship with this entity, this thing, Obviously, one's man-made and one is a creature, but still, I feel like there's still a relationship there that's is unique as you're sort of avataring in that sense, and you lose. Well, you don't. It's interesting because like I feel like everything turns on, right? There's the reactionary part of your brain, and like you're scanning everything, you hear everything, you're like looking for anything that is going to get in your way. You're paying attention to the horse and its movements, and your body's like literally connected to it. There's this whole other dimensional sort of field that you're aware of, and the same with playing music, I suppose. But like it's interesting because when you're doing a live show, it's like, and I guess maybe this is when maybe you feel this too when you were driving, with people watching you. It's like there's a energetic field that's continually getting like magnetized back and forth, and there's this frequency that sort of gets pushed around and around. And sometimes I feel like I can even see it, where there's an energetic frequency that's like getting cycled and cycled, almost like recycled air or some shit, and like
Does it look foggy?
Huh?
Does it look foggy? Like, how does it look?
No, it just has like a bunch of particle colors. And I think what's weird to me is that I can get foggy when I get in my head about what I'm doing, because that's when I'll start to forget what I'm saying, or like I'll forget to connect like the words with like the body movement, because it's all, you know what I'm saying? Because I was talking to somebody else the other day, because it's like there's a difference between like playing an instrument and singing a song and performing it. Maybe that translates into your world as well.
It can. I mean, it can, like the ability to go and do something alone versus like with all the elements. I mean, there's a connect for sure for some people. Like that's not a transition that's easy enough to make. Like people can go fast, but they can't go fast with 30 of your worst enemies out there.
Ooh.
I say that. I mean, sometimes you have an ally, but I think I probably had less allies.
Tell me about your connection to the stars.
Yeah. So I did that project on aliens when I was in school. I remember always going to the bookstore and going to the self-help section. Like I never went for fiction. I never went for anything anything fun, I would say. I always went for the information, and I went for learning. So ever since I was able to drive a car and go where I wanted and do what I wanted, I would do things that were physically active, and I would want to learn. So, so I'd go to Barnes and Noble. Remember when we all went to Barnes and Noble, everybody?
Drinking your coffee and shit.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, go to Starbucks and get your coffee.
Yeah, it was a vibe.
I used to get the Frappuccino with the protein boost and think, well, that negates all the sugar, doesn't it?
Oh yeah.
And,
like I'm kind of healthy today.
And then I'd go to the self-help section, and I would just like I don't know, I was looking for a book to grab me. And I remember reading a book when I was probably around 20-ish. And I don't remember the title at all, but it was a book about someone that went into isolation. And it was using the analogy of like peeling away the layers of an onion and getting to the core and the root of what was really going on and what their issues were. And I just remember finding that kind of thing fascinating. And I mean, the only fiction I've read, because, a lot of people did, and I read Twilight.
That was filmed just down the street from here.
Yeah, yes, I bet it's, the traffic's probably much lower for the, drive-bys for, what town is it? Is it Bend?
No, it's like Carver-ish. I mean, there was this scene. Remember the scene in the movie where he's like running around the woods and he's like saying, "You'll never love me for who I really am," and she's like, "But I do," and he's like he's like throwing trees and shit, and he's like, "But you won't."
Yeah.
It was just down the street. Anyway, continue.
So I kept looking for books that were really, really meaningful, and so I've always been a deep thinker. I've always been really curious about life and what is life, and now I've kind of shifted more into maybe sort of the quantum physics and the metaphysics of life, what is the fabric of reality, but I've always been curious about that. And I remember when I was 18, I was living in England, and I called to get an astrology reading when I was 18.
Who did you call?
I don't know. I don't know, but I was so curious. For me, that kind of thing is so interesting. And I love to know more about myself. And, for sure with astrology, that's something you learn. Like, it's like data on yourself. I feel like if
so
I
you're
saw
saying
your chart, I could know more about you than.
oh yeah. You saying that at 18, you did get a reading, or you wanted to get one?
No, I got one.
And so did it blow your mind? Is that?
I don't remember it blowing my mind as much as I just remember that was like the, early phases of being really interested in the esoteric knowledge of the world and the things that are a little bit more, well, let's say judged or not, people don't believe in it. So I've always been interested in it. And I've always thought aliens are real. And call me, I mean, I feel like haven't we seen stuff come out? Haven't we seen finally recently they finally let some information out about?
Yeah, I mean the most recent thing, of course, that was interesting was when they released this the Pentagon confirmed that this was a real thing, right? And they had, I think it was like 3 years ago that the footage came out of these pilots, that had seen the ship, and it was moving like nothing else they'd ever seen, and it was but there's so much footage and audio over the number of years. I mean, gosh, probably dating back to like even in World War II era, of information around agendas and sightings, etc. But I'm so glad that for you at least that it started so early, because I think there's clearly so much misinformation and speculation, and of course that runs deep, and no one, I guess, really knows some of these truths, I suppose, around our other entities, these other relatives of ours, I guess you could say, these dimensional beings, and I think it's just fascinating to I'm very similar to you in the way that I love thinking about these things. It fascinates me, I want to know the truth. I want to know.
Did you ever watch a show? I think it was on FX. It was called Project Blue Book.
I don't think I did. Tell me about it.
It was a show. They've only been one season. I think they're doing another one, but it was a show that would, it's a show it's not a documentary of any kind. It's what do they call scripted? Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Scripted show, but it's rooted and based in the truths that happened back in the 60s. And so there would be a whole show, and then at the end of the show, what was cool is that they showed you all the original articles that were the for that episode. So it would talk about Roswell, or it would talk about, Operation Paperclip, or it would talk about any of these things, and it would show kind of, the show would depict how, the whole thing would be manipulated, how there'd be something that really happened and a real experience by people. And then these, black suits would come in, kind of like the movie.
MIBs.
And they would come in and they would rewrite it essentially and say like, well, we need to figure out how this could really be quantum. I mean, like, let's bring a scientist in. He'll tell us how this went. And so then there would be kind of like a cover up essentially. And then at the end of the episode, they would, show you what the real information was. But I just think it's really cocky and naive to think that in this entire galaxy, it's just us.
Right. I mean, are there things that you're rooted in your beliefs around other species living on this planet, or perhaps off planet, or our relationship with them? For me, there's some goalposts I can make, right? Like I can say a number of different things, but I could share, but I want to hear from you first. Like, a number of things I could say around, okay, I definitely believe this happened, and I could say that from here to here, this is sort of from my research what I'm feeling intuitively as far as truth is concerned. Can you share any of what that might look like in your world?
Man, I've looked down all these different rabbit holes of like what's here from, inner earth beings to the giant people, like we talked about your song Alice, about the reptilians, shape-shifting, and all of the fun videos you can find on celebrities.
Oh my God, yeah.
Elle and Justin Bieber. You can have some fun with that one. Then I've listened to tons of channeling. Like, that's interesting too. Just, somebody channeling like the Palladians or so. I mean, that's what Abraham Hicks is. Like, so many people are.
Oh my God, I love her.
Abraham Hicks, but Abraham Hicks is channeling entities.
Yeah.
So
like full straight on.
That they come through us. I think maybe there are some here. Then of course you listen to somebody like David Wilcock, and he'll talk about how many different species are on the planet, and he'll talk about how many good ones, how many bad ones. So there's a lot of information out there if you're really curious. But I guess I feel like I think they're always integrating with us. I have this weird thing. So
let's hear it.
Every now and again, I'll be on the couch and it'll be like 9 o'clock at night, and I'll get like hit over the head with a hammer and feel like I pass out. And I wake up so disoriented and groggy. Like I can't even open my eyes, like not tired, but like drugged.
How long will you be out for that? Like an hour or something?
Like an hour, maybe. Half an hour to an hour, maybe. And I'll feel so out of it. Like literally can't open my eyes. And I have this thought in my head, and this started happening to me years ago. And I remember I was racing, and I would be on my bus, like watching TV. And then all of a sudden, and it usually happened when I was watching something kind of interesting. Like I think I remember one of the first times that I remember was when I was watching Interstellar. Or something like that, or like one of those kinds of movies. Or at least it was around like that same weekend that I was watching that and some other things. Or maybe it was like Ancient Aliens or something. And I would wake up so disoriented, and I come to the conclusion that I've said this like a little while ago, this was my guess of what it is I feel like I'm being downloaded. I feel like this information to remember, like the remembering. It's like getting into my psyche. Like how I can feel there's such strong ideas or opinions that I have about reality or how things work. Like, where did they come from? I don't know. I'm not that big. I'm not that big of a reader. I'm kind of a picture girl.
Yeah, the visuals so important for me too. I'm just like, I can't focus unless I see pictures.
Do you have any weird things like that happen?
Well, yeah,
is it more just plant medicine downloads?
Nah. So those are always a good place to start for me. But like, what you're saying is so interesting because I forget this guy's name. His name is hang on. It's I see his face. His name is
Stephen Greer.
Nah, I do want to talk about him, but he's often on with Wilcock a lot, and he's
Corey Good.
Yes, Corey. Now he's an interesting character because like at first I'd watch him and I couldn't deal with it. I was like I couldn't process him because it's just his presence and his attitude. I couldn't quite get it, and the stuff that he says is far out, It's just like, I'm just like, damn. So he grew up, he grew up in the he grew up in the secret space program as a child, and like then he got age regressed and all this shit, and I was just like, oh my God, And so when I first started listening to him and listening to stories, in his talks, like I was just like, oh, my mind was just like trying to like comprehend, you know, just like so much information. But then I remember, because then I listened to Wilcock, and he sort of brings it in here, you know, and he's into meditation as too. And so I think what I have to remember sometimes is that, you know, people like Abraham Hicks or even like Teal Swan, you know, these people who are like literally channels, you know, they're not here to like, they're not here to make it pretty for you, you know. They're not, each person has a different space and how they're going to share that knowledge with us. And I think, you know, all of us, you know, I would say, you know, we all have reptilian blood in that sense. And I think that there's a space to where we go, you know, whether or not we're related to these other species, whatever, we do exist here together, here in multiple realms, you know, off planet, on planet. And I think that what's interesting to me is the that I have to remember, I have to constantly remind myself that, like, you know, if one person's stuff, you know, information that they're sharing, like Corey, you know, you take those pieces and you go, okay, so there's that whole side of the world. I understand that there's that stuff going on. Wow, okay, you know, not two people are going to have the same experience, and you know, there's a lot of this similarities happening, but like, you know, you listen to these other teachers, and they're channeling this stuff, they're talking through spirits, and they're sharing the information. But you have to, because I feel like a lot of people get frustrated because they're like, well, what do I believe? I'm like, you can believe it all if you want, or you can believe none of it, you know. But I haven't had experiences like this, like you're explaining, where you're like, you know, getting downloaded in that sense. That's pretty dope. I think
I have one other story that I just thought of.
yeah,
Somebody was talking about DNA reprogram. Somebody was saying something. I saw something down at the bottom, and it reminded me of another story when I was on the bus. And so it was kind of around that same time. Like, I don't know, maybe this was some great awakening I was having like a few years ago, probably 2017. And I remember laying down on the couch, and I felt tired. And all of a sudden, it was like I got thrown back by my head from something. Something pushed my head back and laid me down, and like almost like holding me down. But then all of a sudden I became very relaxed. It was like not scary. I was like, what's going on? And it's the weirdest thing. It was like my body folded into itself. Like my whole body rolled into itself and folded in, like sunk and folded in. And then it just opened up. And like, just like complete expansion. And I don't remember anything after that, but it's so weird to be like thrown back. And like, it wasn't like, I think I was laying down, but the feeling and the energy of it was this like, hang on.
Were you asleep or almost asleep?
Yeah, it was somewhere in transition. And I've heard people talk about, because I saw somebody else say something about sleep paralysis. And
yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
I don't know. Does that really sound like it? Like to have, like, I mean, to be held down, okay, maybe, because your mind might be trying to get out of it. But then to have that kind of like retraction and expansion thing, like that was really weird.
Well, I guess my question about sleep paralysis is sleep paralysis actually something different than what we're told? Because when you said that, I thought about all the times that I've felt this feeling and wondered if it's more than just this sleep paralysis thing they talk about, because I've had multiple experiences like that where I'm like in a halfway sleep space, and oftentimes my body is like totally tired, so like my body's trying to shut down but my mind's still awake, and so I'll be in this halfway space, and then I'll wake up in this halfway space and be like, oh, I'm kind of half asleep. For instance, I remember falling asleep in my van one time in Minnesota, and I'd left like the little window where my head would lay was a slider window, and it was like kind of cracked open. And I remember waking up in this halfway space and thinking to myself, did I lock the front door? Because I was kind of in this hood. And I was like, did I lock the front door? And then I heard someone coming in. And I thought, uh-oh, did I lock it? And then I felt this wind come into the window and cover me. And then that's when I couldn't move. And I was like, uh-oh, oh shit. And then I was like trying to get out of it. You know how you try to get out of it?
Yeah.
And I've had multiple experiences like this where I try to get out of this thing. And then I'm like, I literally have to like and my partner at the time was sleeping next to me, and I was trying to scream at her to wake me up. I was like, wake me up, inside. And then I remember something also that was interesting to me that I've had multiple experiences is like every time I would try to wake up from that kind of half space, something was coming. Something was coming that was like, and it was freaking me out because I was like, something's coming. I remember walking through this like halfway built framed house, and there was a piece of tarp that was like flapping in the doorway, and there was something behind that flapping tarp, and I walked closer and closer to it, but I was awake, but I was also really scared, and like my first person view was like continuing to walk, but my mind was like, don't go over there, don't go over there. But I could look at my legs, and I was walking over there, and I was like, no. And right as I was about to pull the thing back, I forced myself to wake up. And then as I got older and I started thinking about it, I was like, what if I'm actually just afraid because my mind's afraid? What if I went all the way in and greeted whatever was waiting on the other side of that veil for me? And I've tried that a couple times, but so far I've just continued to wake up. But I wonder if if the sleep paralysis thing is there might be some science to it that's there, but I think the subconscious is very powerful, and I think that's where we're also being contacted from
I'm
as
also
well.
really curious about deja vu too, and what that really is. I just had an experience with someone where I was like, oh my gosh, I'm having deja vu. And they said I'm having deja vu at the exact same time.
What the
And like,
hell?
I only have deja vu a couple times a year, maybe, like it's not super common to be like, I've totally been here. I've had this conversation.
Yeah,
And for to have someone else say, I'm having the exact same thing happen right now was super weird. But I kind of wonder what that is too. Because
a
see, I don't think
collective
about
memory.
just
It's so
aliens. I
crazy.
kind of think about the alien realm of like dimensions too. And so
Mm-hmm.
parallel universes, like
Totally.
is there some slippage in information that I'm actually just a fraction behind in different dimensions and feeling it? Like, is it really actually kind of happening simultaneously, but there's some time slippage?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, I think
Yeah.
about deja vu and I think it's so weird, but I can also associate the deja vu with feeling like, I don't know if anybody else feels this, but when I have deja vu, I can think, oh, this was a really old dream. Holy crap. I remember when this is like, I can remember the timeline. I can think like, oh, a
Oh
couple of
wow.
years ago, or I can remember, oh gosh, this was like a dream I had, I feel like 10 years ago.
Oh wow.
I
That's
can kind of
cool.
feel the timeline, but it also makes me curious about dimensions too. And this idea of parallel universes and how every decision we make, we split off into, and we split we as an entity, as an energy, as our consciousness splits off, and like every decision you make, it goes two different directions, and then from that there's two more directions, and so like every decision
Is
you make, you're populating more
And I
people.
feel like that's like the quantum realm, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is super trippy and super cool. And I mean, I think like yeah, I don't know, like the the dimensional space. Oh, that's what I was gonna ask because you mentioned Dr. Greer, and I was like, yo, the I'm so glad that there's a film now that brings in meditation to
That was
this
a great film.
whole to this whole
You recommended the best
realm.
film. That was so interesting. You should
Can you?
tell them.
Oh yeah, well, there's this film called Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, and I'm so. Can you share some revelations that perhaps came from that for you?
Um, just that we're more in control of our experiences and encounters, like being able to call things in.
Hmm.
And I guess I didn't really think about that much. I kind of thought that the experiences would just happen to you, and it
Hmm.
would be something that you're necessarily calling in and asking for. So
To participate in it.
that was really interesting how they really call in entities and energies and UFOs, and they see them, and it's crazy. There's footage. This is not bullshit. Like,
Hmm.
it's
Hmm.
footage. But then to learn how to do that, which was something that goes, is like, you wouldn't think part of this understanding or knowing about aliens and UFOs and this whole, all the other worlds out there, but to put so much focus in the film about meditation and
Yeah.
quieting the mind and how you get to that space. And yeah, I guess, it kind of, I don't really watch much TV anymore, much at all. And I stopped watching the news like over a year and a half ago. And I feel really good about that because as I see things now, I look at some of these silly things that go on, or these shows, or these narratives that just go round and round and never change. And I think there's just, the world is full and it's made for us to be distracted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally full of misinformation and propaganda and dividing us
Action.
every
Like, look
day.
at the shows. Like, they're so silly, some of them. And you're like, what is this? And you're
What are you
like,
doing
and
with
then,
your time? Yeah.
huh. It's like, I just feel like there's just like these things are made for us to not connect with ourselves and not get quiet and not feel things. So I think that's what happened. It's been happening to me over the last couple of years is I'm really starting to feel things. Like, as a psychic or an intuitive would say, like, the antennas are getting bigger and better. Like, you're starting to feel energy and feel like, be really intuitive and just know certain things. And yeah, just, trusting that stuff, and the information that comes in becomes, instead of being like this, like, oh yeah, you know what, I kind of thought about that. It's like you look at it like true information.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I loved the part in the film as well where he spoke about the necessary our responsibility as intuitive people, as star people, to make contact on our own in order to create um, a majority of people who are making peaceful contact. Because I think that what is displayed in the film, and also I think we've all kind of known this for a long enough time now, that shadow governments and other governmental entities have continued to try to control contact from happening and creating a negative impact on the world, so that they sort of have control of the situation. And one thing that I had listened to from his last film, Unacknowledged, that really tripped me out and set me spinning regarding mass, hysteria, and like the things that we've seen, foreign dictators, we've seen terrorists, we've seen people with weapons of mass destruction, all the things that they tell us, are our enemies and what we need to be afraid of. And I kept thinking, after I had seen that first film, I was like, God, it is such a great trick, to the next big fearful thing after a virus, to give it the virus, this whole thing. I was like, oh yeah, that's a great tactic to say, oh, there's an alien invasion happening. Can you believe it? And of course, we've had years and years and years of conditioning through Hollywood and through all of the other misinformation.
To make them scary.
Yeah, exactly. To say,
So
okay, yeah, funnel a bunch of movies. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought to myself, what it'd be like I actually really want to meet like an extraterrestrial.
Yo, I've got a
so
parking space right here for them. I said, yo, you can park your ship here. It's all good. Plenty of space. There's stuff in the fridge. I know they're dairy free, they're gluten free, so it's all good. Go ahead.
Aliens are all gluten free, obviously.
Yeah, obviously.
And of course, nut milk, not cow milk. But I've thought about it, and as I walk outside, sometimes in the dark, I'm like, what would it feel like if there was one right here? Mm-hmm. And I think to myself, I'd be freaked the out, right?
Totally,
like,
yeah.
Scared. But then I have this feeling that if there was an extraterrestrial, that they would have control of my mind and perception and comfort me and make me real and help. I would just know it was safe. It would be like a euphoric moment. That's what I think it would be like.
Like that guy in the film when he was deaf.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
That was crazy.
He couldn't hear him back. He couldn't hear his whole life or whatever, and then he had an experience where he made contact and they healed him.
Yeah.
Next day he could hear everything. He's like, what? He was like, I was just like, damn, that's pretty wild. Everybody should know that story. Come on.
I mean, it just is what it is. And, cognitive dissonance is a real thing. We want to stick with our, what we've been taught to believe, what we do believe, because it is what we do believe. But, I just think that I think I feel the shift. I don't know if you do, but I feel the shift of the world becoming more open-minded and, you know, malleable, less rigid.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Does it make you feel excited for the future? Being able to have that sort of feeling surround you around the world shifting and changing, and I mean, especially during a time like this, like, how does it? What excites you about the new world and the future ahead of us?
More connection to each other and nature.
Mm-hmm.
Just less destroying each other and nature to win a prize or to make money. Kind of makes you think, like, if all, like, I don't know, if all money just went away, what would you do? And, what would be important? And what if we lived in a world? I have this imagination for a world where there isn't money. It's just your talents and your gifts and commodities that you can provide. Like I'm a good cook. I like to garden. So I like to work out. So like I could be I'd share those things, and then somebody else might be really good at building a house, and somebody else might be really good, so everyone has their gifts and talents, and you just share them. What if we did that?
I know. Imagine if we raised our kids like that. What if we raised our children in a way where we weren't making them compete with each other, and we allowed them to have their own learning? What is it? The how they learn. If we just took time to teach each child
the curriculum.
The way, because the way that they feel like learning.
Dude, don't get me started on school.
I heard you dropped out of high school, so did I. So I feel you.
I think it's because I have my GED and I did okay. So I'm like, man, what did that diploma or degree do? I don't have one. But I mean, look, if I have somebody operating on me, I'm going to hope you've gone to school. Yeah,
hell yeah, of course. Obviously.
But I just think there's a lot of pointless information in it. I don't use obviously I don't have the biggest education, but there are certain little facets of life that need it, but I don't use most of it.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. I mean, I dropped out of high school. I got my GED, but I barely got it, and then I dropped out of I failed.
I failed the first time, not because. Okay, let me explain. I don't want people to think I'm too dumb.
Well, clearly you're not dumb.
I failed the Constitution test. So when I was in 8th grade, you had to pass it to go to high school, and I got 70, and a 69 is fail, so I got a 70. And then when I took it to pass my GED, I failed. And then I had to get, I think, 50% right, like 30 out of 60, and I didn't.
So can you take it again? I had to
retake it, and I think I just passed.
Whew. But right when you passed it, were you trying to go to college and shit, or were you just like, hell no, I'm not doing that?
Oh God, no. Yeah. I got my GED just because my parents. I graduated before my friends, so I was still 18, and I was not making any money, and racing wasn't my full time, wasn't my job. I wasn't being paid, so I just did it because my parents told me to, and I thought,
I feel you.
I should probably get some kind of diploma. I might as well.
Yeah.
So I didn't really study. I never really studied. In fact, I never studied.
Well, yeah, because I'm with you on that, because I'm not gonna sit and look at this book when I could go outside and be outside and shit. I need pictures. What the hell? I want pictures.
Yeah, if it was a picture test, I'm sure I would have shined. But
oh man,
my brain doesn't really work with reading a lot, digesting, and I remember in a creative sense. So I don't know if anybody can relate to this, but the way that I read things is it's literally a movie for me. Anytime I read something, I'm visualizing it. Sitting right here, like my workout that did this morning. I'm literally visualizing every move. I'm visualizing anything I read. It's the only way that it sinks in for me. Otherwise, it's just words.
I'm so glad you didn't roast me for not making your workout this morning.
I did invite you to film yourself doing the side plank clams. I thought that would have been funny.
Yeah, because I was like, what the hell is a clam?
Your legs open up.
Oh God, nobody wants to see that. Jesus.
Come on.
Woo!
Everyone woman.
So
I mean, you're
funny.
posting pictures of yourself with a mohawk riding on, horses. So how could this be so bad to be doing a workout move? Come on,
Okay,
Bear.
so I have one final question for you here, and it's regarding something that I have been told about myself, and I wonder what your answer would be. Once we make contact and we have established relations, if you could take a position within, what's the question I want to ask? Basically, I want to know if does it interest you to be a pilot?
For an unidentified flying object?
Yeah, for a ship that doesn't use any kind of earthly materials to fly.
I had this dream one time. Let me tell you about it. So
Yeah.
I had this dream one time and this was like, it felt like some kind of a download. It was a dream about how you travel the universe. And so it was like I got into this cart and it was open. It just had like a rail around the outside. And all I would do is put this energy bubble around me. And it was like a force field. And then you just literally took off and went wherever you wanted as fast as you wanted. But of course, there was no wind in your hair because you're in the force field.
Hmm.
And so, anyway, would I want to? Yeah, but then it enters this realm of I have this idea too that dark energy is actually just kind of the world wide web of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all connected through this dark energy that we don't understand and we don't know what it is. So we just call it dark energy.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, I think, what is the universe made up of 95% dark energy, which means we don't understand 95% of what the universe is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Much like our DNA also. I think our DNA is something like 90 or 95% junk DNA. That's interesting too.
Oh, that's a good one.
So many micro, macro levels of things you're like, wait, what? Huh? Just a
Yeah.
second. But I think that what I'm trying to say is I believe that there's a chance that we are our own pilots. Like we are pilots already.
Boom. Yeah, that's that. Drop the mic. There it is. There it is. That's all it needs. Well, it's been a great time talking. That's a good show.
So I'm gonna take off.
See ya. Oh man. Well, I hope that we get to at least fly ships together someday, because I want to go really fast in them, and I want to drive them, because I think that I had a past as a pilot at some point in time.
Oh.
Yeah, and so I'm just ready to hop in. I'm trying to get them to bring me a ship, because I'm sure they got one. I want to be an influencer for them. You know what I mean? Give me a free ship.
Yeah.
I'll fly it every day. I'll take photos. I'll post. I'll do all the things. Whatever they need.
Come pick me up.
Yeah. No, I'll give them one for you too.
Oh, cool. Oh man, we could have space races.
That's what I'm saying. Let's go.
We got it figured out. Oh my God. So
Well,
fun.
it's so good to chat with you.
I'm so glad
Thank
we
you so
finally got
much.
to talk about aliens.
I know. I'm glad. I wanted to see how deep we could go, and I feel like we're just scratching the surface. But I really appreciate you going there with me, because it's really fun. And you are highly intelligent. And for anybody out there, who wonders if school is necessary, school is school of life all day.
I like to learn. I yearn to learn.
Danica, it's so good to chat with you. Thanks so much for hanging out. Give all the fam our love, and we'll talk soon.
I hope.
Woo. Woo. That's my kind of conversation, my friends. Well, man, I could talk about that shit all day. Big thanks to Danica Patrick for dropping in on some really, really important conversations today. That was really fun. Some great things that she offered in there too. I hope you guys got some stuff out of that. Got some good laughs. Got some good insights. I was reading all y'all's comments, and yeah, I think a lot of us are on the same page. So that's good to hear. Guys, I got a lot of stuff to do today. It's a big day in preparation for a massive party tomorrow. if you haven't seen any of the information we've been putting out today yet, check it out on Facebook and on our all of our socials and stuff. We're having an alien party tomorrow, so bring your alien friends. Bring your inner Earth being friends. Bring your Anunnaki friends. Bring whoever you want. We're all just beings here, and everybody deserves the medicine, baby. You know what I'm saying? Everybody does. So, yeah, check out all the social stuff. We're going to be doing a big ass party tomorrow. It's a big live. We're going to be celebrating. The album drops at midnight tonight. I hope you guys are all, I know some people got their pre-orders early this week because, the mail has been doing some strange things. And I want to just promote this too, because I want you guys to check in on the mail system, because I, for one, I adore the mail. I love the mailman. I love getting mail in the mail. I love getting mail in the mail as a male. So, but the mail system's going broke, man, and it's really sad. And they might run out of money by the end of this year, and we might not be able to get mail anymore, which is crazy. So, they're trying to privatize it and shit. But basically, what I'm trying to say is, if you haven't gotten your shit in the mail and you were expecting it, patience, because it's probably coming. It is coming. It's for sure coming. But it's just been a little delayed because of the situations at hand. So anyways, big thanks to Danica Patrick. That was so fun. I had a blast. It was out of this world. It was interstellar. And I can't wait to see all you guys tomorrow. It's going to be epic. And, tag me, take photos of you guys with the albums and shit. I can't wait to hear everybody's opinions on it. And look out for me. I'm going to be going live at some random times. Later today, tomorrow morning, I'm gonna do some lives with some fans who have had the album, and I want to talk to y'all over live like that. So keep an eye out for me on Instagram. I'll be coming out live, doing some chats with y'all in that way. So, all right, y'all, have a beautiful rest of your day. TYPB ready to drop. Let's go. Woo!